Welcome to TakeaSide, the sports talk show that lets you, the viewer, choose our winners. Today, we're bringing you a very special NBA Draft TakeaSide episode. But before we get into that, special shout out to B. Burkett for taking home his first win atop the Sided leaderboard. For your chance to do the same and take home a $25 Amazon gift card, head over to Sided.co or the Sided Debates app to put up your arguments to climb up that leaderboard. Now, with the NBA Draft set to take place virtually on Wednesday, there's still no clear answer on who the Minnesota Timberwolves will select with the number 1 overall pick. Just yesterday, CBS Sports NBA analyst Gary Parrish slotted guard LaMelo Ball as the number 1 overall pick in his latest mock draft. Ball, a 19-year-old point guard, spent last season with the Illawarra Hawks and has been a consensus top 3 pick throughout this draft process. But is he worth the number 1 overall pick? I'm joined by Stephen Leisure and Nick Sola to debate.
Yeah, I got to go with no on this one. I think my first pick is Anthony Edwards. I think he's the most fit number 1 pick right now, most ready. The potential is there, the athleticism is there, just the NBA readiness is there. And also I think he's the best fit for the Minnesota Timberwolves. They have a great point guard already in D'Angelo Russell, and they have solid big man play in Karl-Anthony Towns, and also Jarrett Culver last year that can play forward. Anthony Edwards is a guy who, while inefficient in college, he can get you 20 plus a night with some assists and some rebounds, and he can slash, he can dunk, he can do just about everything. LaMelo, while he has that experience, I wonder if he can lead a team, especially like the Timberwolves at the point guard position. What do you think?
I completely disagree with Anthony Edwards going number 1. I think that his percentages just aren't good enough, especially playing at the college level. Although Georgia did ask him to do a lot because that team, it only went 16-16, so it wasn't exactly great. But I mean, 40% from the field and 29% from 3, those numbers are still, those won't hold up in the NBA. If he's shooting that in college, doing that in the NBA, it just isn't going to work. But the biggest thing for LaMelo, like said earlier, he already played professional basketball in Australia for the Hawks. And I think that just having that experience, even though his percentages weren't great there, I think just having all that experience of playing with more physical guys and guys that they know what they're doing a lot more than college players. Like, think about it. A lot of these college players, they're never going to make it professionally anywhere, but he's already got experience versus players that have at least some type of experience. It may not be NBA experience, but it's still something that's a lot better than anything Anthony Edwards has faced so far.
My concern with LaMelo, and we've seen he's been kind of an internet sensation. There's a video of him scoring 92 points in a game when he's cherry picking and doing all this stuff. I wonder if that competition he faced, how beneficial it was toward him making the league, because while it's professional play, I just don't think they have the physicality that he's going to be facing in the NBA, and I wonder, that's my biggest question mark with him is, can he keep up with the NBA physically? I think he has the shooting ability and the passing ability and all that. I just don't know athletically how he'll fit in, and overall if he can take over a ball team. There's obviously, he also has LeVar Ball following him around. I don't know how teams will like that, but Anthony Edwards, in my opinion, just a perfect NBA potential ready player. Like, he's got the slashing skills, he can dunk, he's got the speed, he can shoot a little bit, he can do just about everything. And I think he fits the Timberwolves offense the best because he can start immediately right at wing, as to where, LaMelo, he's fighting with D'Lo right away. I just think it's a better fit.
Well, LaMelo Ball is 6'7", so it's not like he's the short guy that he used to be in high school. Now if you saw some of his highlights for the Hawks, he was playing at times he could play pretty good defense against bigger guys, not to mention that he was able to box out and efficiently get some rebounds out there. It wasn't like he was just out there just to score and just to facilitate a little bit. No, he was actually participating in the whole game, which if you've seen from his high school days, he changed completely. He went from not playing any defense at all to going right to he just changed his game completely from just scoring to actually doing it all. But what do you guys think? Go on sided, and we'll be right back.
Where you go to college makes a statement about you. This place will become a part of you, your identity for life. The University of Kansas, a great place to be you.
Welcome back. This Wednesday also has some local relevance, with KU sending 2 players to the draft in guard Devon Dotson and center Udoka Azubuike. With Dotson likely to be picked in the late first, early second round, NBC Sports Philadelphia published an article earlier this week calling for the Philadelphia 76ers to draft the sophomore guard. The 76ers currently have the number 21, 34, 36, 48, and 59 overall picks in the draft. I'm joined by Blake Sevenbergen and Maya Peterson to debate whether or not the 76ers are the right fit for Devon Dotson.
Thank you, Jacob. As you said, NBC Sports Philadelphia published an article talking about the KU Jayhawk, Devon Dotson. Their biggest points were he's one of the fastest that is in this draft. He's very versatile, but there were some weaknesses as well. He also is not really good with facilitating the ball. He is a shoot-first type of guy. But does this make him a great fit for the 76ers?
I would entirely disagree with him being a good fit for the Sixers. They've talked about moving on from Ben Simmons, but Ben Simmons is the point guard that the Sixers need. While he can't shoot the basketball to save his life at all, ever probably, Ben Simmons can facilitate, he can drive, he can dish to Joel Embiid, and that's what makes him a good point guard for that team. And I think Dot would just get stuck behind him on that team, and which is why I think that the Oklahoma City Thunder would be a better fit for Devon Dotson than the Philadelphia 76ers. The Thunder just traded away point guard Chris Paul. They're looking to ship off Dennis Schroeder this week, and then their trade with Chris Paul, they got Ricky Rubio, who is aging and could be a good mentor for Devon Dotson in the league.
All right, so big trade like you said. But they also got Jalen LeCue and Kelly Oubre. Those are big stars. A lot of people haven't seen the big potential that Jalen LeCue has. He came up in the Suns. They didn't use him as much because they had D-Book. But this OKC Thunder is going to need Jalen LeCue. And I don't think that Dotson will be able to go in and be effective with the young stars that they're going to try to make this OKC team. Everyone is saying in the next year, 2 years, the Thunder will be a top contending team, and Dotson won't be able to hold on for that long. So I'm going with Utah Jazz. You have Donovan Mitchell, which everyone's going to say he's going to have to learn a lot, but his contract is going to be up in a year, which is going to make room for Dotson. And also, let's look at this. Donovan Mitchell, 2018, amazing pick for the Utah Jazz. He came in 6'3". They said he was great for fast breaks. He was going to be a good leader, but he was lacking in size. And once again, he was a score-first option. Who does that sound like to you?
Sounds a lot like
Devon Dotson. He's going to learn a lot being behind Donovan Mitchell. He's going to be a potential starter in the next year, maybe 2 years. But coming off the bench after Donovan Mitchell is not terrible. That's actually pretty good.
See, my problem with that for Devon Dotson coming off behind Donovan Mitchell is Mike Conley's in Utah too.
Okay, yeah.
And Donovan Mitchell, although he is on his last year of his contract, they're the same build, which I think could be a struggle for them to find out if they could play together.
Okay.
And I think the Utah Jazz want to run with Donovan Mitchell in the long haul, and that's why I think they won't draft Dot, just because of the fact that they think Donovan Mitchell is their franchise point guard, and he's going to be there for a long time.
Okay.
Another team, however, that I think Devon could be a good fit for is the New York Knicks. The Knicks are a really young team. They don't have a ton of veterans, and they might as well draft a young point guard with a lot of upside. Dotson had one of the best combines in history. 40.5-inch vertical, one of the fastest three-quarter sprints ever. He's a shooter. He can score. Him and R.J. Barrett, I think, could be a deadly combination.
Okay.
And with a young team, young coaching staff, I think he could be a starter almost immediately for the Knicks.
Okay, well, what pick do the Knicks have?
The Knicks are, I believe, the 8th pick in the second round, which is the best fit for Dot there.
That's interesting. So they are looking for a franchise point guard, like you said. And Dotson, we know, has a lot of potential, but is he going to be able to come into the league and be an amazing leader off the back? I think that's a lot of pressure on him, and I don't think he will be able to do that effectively with the Knicks. Now, I'm about to give you the most elite pick for Dotson, and we've already talked about this a little bit. The Spurs. They're known for having a young team. Popovich is very similar to Coach Bill Self. And look at this. They get the 11th pick in the first round, which is going to go to a combo forward, Sadiq Bey, obviously. And then they're going to look for an amazing point guard that is going to be able to transform his game from score first to being able to look for someone who's close to a Marcus Garrett build, DeJounte Murray, and they have other great picks around him. Dotson will go in. He's going to learn the plays. He's going to learn how to be that big leader we need on this team. The Spurs are going to start to kind of look for your Kawhi Leonard, Tim Duncan, Ginobili look. Dotson, I think the Spurs is the best pick for him. If the Spurs are looking at this and watching, they know who to pick.
Yeah, and I think we can both agree that regardless, wherever Dot ends up, he's going to be a great fit. He's good young talent. He's a good shooter. And I think with that, he'll succeed anywhere in the league.
Yes, and we're looking forward to seeing what he can do in this league, whether that is with the Spurs, Knicks, Utah Jazz, or the original pick to the 76ers. But with all that being said, let's send it right back to Jacob.
Thank you, guys. We'll send it to commercial, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We already talked about the prominence of LaMelo Ball, but there's another prospect vying for that #1 pick in James Wiseman. Wiseman, a freshman big from Memphis, is projected as the #2 overall pick in the 2020 draft by CBS Sports' Gary Parrish. After playing just 3 games for the Memphis Tigers last season, Wiseman left school amid an eligibility battle with the NCAA. However, in those 3 games, Wiseman was spectacular, averaging 19.7 points, 10.7 rebounds, and 3 blocks per game while shooting 76.9% from the field. I'm joined by Max McElroy and Jerome Sweeney to debate on if Wiseman has the highest ceiling among this year's NBA draft prospects.
Well, I think this is clear. I think James Wiseman is without a doubt have the highest ceiling. I think he's the best player in this draft. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to go #1 overall just because the Timberwolves have Karl Anthony Towns and there's not a huge need there for a big. But James Wiseman, I think, when you see him, he just leaps off the top. I was talking to Jacob earlier, and he said that when he went to the McDonald's All-American game, coaches and scouts are both there. They're just saying he is the best player on the field when he's on the court, and just a game breaker really you cannot miss him, I would say, as a prospect. And #2 overall is perfect because he's right there, the Golden State Warriors, and they're going to have Steph back, they're going to have Clay back, and then they're going to have now they could potentially get James Wiseman, just a true star.
For the Warriors, are they going to be stretched too thin outside the three-point range because they are just going to have Steph and Clay, and James Wiseman is going to come into a crowded front court, which could be good for him because that would allow him to develop behind Willie Cauley-Stein type players, which are proven to be effective centers in the NBA. But are those centers stars? No, that he's going to develop behind. How hard is it to become a superstar center in the NBA? Extremely hard. So I think there's more bust potential than actual hype potential for James Wiseman, because even though he played 3 games, of those 3 games, he played 1 game against a major conference team. And in that game, he had his worst game out of the 3 games that he played. Granted, it's a small sample size. So basically, we have a high school player going number 2 in the draft this year.
I think that, well, I mean, for starters, it worked out really well for a couple NFL stars, specifically named Kobe Bryant and LeBron James.
Right.
But I don't think the high school really has an effect, because he did get to play in college, and he played 3 games, obviously, and if it wasn't for the NCAA and all of their rules and stuff.
Well, I think it's just, it comes down to experience on the next level, and he has experience playing against high school kids, where these guys that are being drafted with him have experience playing each other, NBA players, overseas professional players. I think just his competition that he's faced is going to put him at an extreme disadvantage to every other, even the second round guys, the undrafted guys have played better competition, so they know how college players move the ball better than him. They have an understanding of how college players transition to the NBA, and James Wiseman's just been working out for the last 10 months.
Well, I mean, that's basically what most college basketball players have been doing anyway. Well, obviously with COVID, there hasn't been a lot of people being able to practice, and even like the NBA Combine, and you have different stuff, media stuff, all that it isn't really happening. So I think this draft is kind of full of people who are going to need a little bit more work and need a little bit of development. And what's a better place for development than Golden State, where you might not have to be able to have 25 points a game, and you might just need to be able to rebound the ball, and you'll be able to rotate him in.
So assuming he goes to Golden State, barring any crazy situations, I think it's going to be hard for him to figure out, where do I line up on defense against these NBA big men? Where do I set up in the post against these big men? How do I not foul out of games? How do I play defense? Is my defense going to translate to the NBA from my high school? And I'm having some concerns about his defense.
So who do you think will be who could be the superstar of this draft, and who could be the best prospect?
I think superstars of this draft, LaMelo Ball, as much as you hate to say it, you watch him, we've all seen him grow up playing basketball these last couple of years, but it's been weird for LaMelo because he's been playing overseas in Lithuania and New Zealand, but he's been a star overseas. He's been really good, and there's no doubt he's better than his other 2 brothers. For LaMelo Ball, he just needs to grow into his body. He's 6'7", 180. He needs to put on some weight, because if you watch his highlights, he just gets knocked off of his shot easily. He takes bad shots. So I think they're both low IQ players, and I would even argue that Anthony Edwards is also a low IQ player. So I think all 3 of the consensus top picks are going to need some time to develop and figure out how to make NBA smart plays and not turn the ball over, and figure out how to play 2 sides of the game.
Absolutely. I just feel that, well, James Wiseman, being 7'1" is already very helpful just in terms of defensively.
And having a 7'6" wingspan too.
Yeah, exactly.
Really, really beneficial.
He's huge. And the big knock on him is he just needs to gain a little bit of muscle, and if he can even extend his shot out to the 3-point line, he will be unstoppable in the league. I think in terms of just pure shooter between mid-range, I think he has the best mid-range. If he can develop that 3-pointer, there's no question in my mind that he's going to be just an absolute star.
I even think that all of the top 3 first picks need to develop their outside shooting a lot.
Absolutely.
You see LaMelo Ball shooting in the 20%. You see Anthony Edwards being good at some points, but he's inconsistent. They all need to get consistency, and I think James Wiseman's going to take the longest out of all 3 of those to find his groove in the NBA. And I think he might have to find another team besides the Warriors to find his groove, because they have so many stars on the Warriors that are coming back. Wiggins wants to be a star. He scores points. Clay, Steph, Drummond, or Draymond, it's going to be hard for him to find valuable time. And if you're a first-round pick, you're going to have expectations. You want to be good. You want to put up points. You want to produce. I don't know if there's room for him to produce in that offense.
Well, I think that even just being on the Warriors, a place where he doesn't have to score 25 points a game, that's a place where he could just be solid. He could be 10-10-10 across the board. And I think that's just a great place to be, especially as a rookie coming in. Who knows how much time they're going to have to be able to start the season. Obviously, the season starts in December, so there's a pretty short turnaround.
It's one thing for sure is it'll be a very interesting draft tomorrow night, and an even more interesting season coming up.
Absolutely.
We're going to throw it back over to Jacob, and we will see you next time. Yeah.
Well, I think that James Wiseman has by far the highest ceiling in this draft, that modern NBA is all about bigs that can stretch the floor, and James Wiseman can do exactly that. But that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us. This is the last show of the semester, so on behalf of all of us here at TakeaSide, I want to say thank you to Cal Butcher, the man that has made this show a possibility. And be sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook at TakeaSideKU to keep up with all of our latest debates over these next couple months. We'll be returning next February for another season. For all of us here at TakeaSide, I'm Jacob Polachek, and thank you for joining us.